Welcome to Leighton's Expert Exchange podcast. This is our final episode in our Women in Business mini-series, and we are here for a conversation today to talk about leadership, finance and the transition from numbers to strategy. I'm delighted to be joined by Emma Swann, Managing Director at BOAL Extrusion UK. Emma's career began in finance, holding senior roles in taxation and accounting before stepping into leadership at BOAL, a company at the forefront of sustainable aluminium manufacturing. Today we'll explore how her financial expertise has shaped her leadership style, the importance of financial strategy in driving a sustainable business, and why finance can be a powerful path for women looking to step into leadership. Emma, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for being here.
Good. No, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, to start us off today, I want to talk a little bit about that finance to leadership journey. Your career started in finance and now you're leading a business in aluminium manufacturing. Can you share with me what that transition was like, moving from finance to leadership in manufacturing?
Yeah. So I've had my whole career in finance up to around, well, I joined BOAL 3 years ago as finance director. And I think at an early age I knew I liked numbers and accountancy and kind of followed that career path. I studied actually just down the road at Loughborough University, accounting and financial management. And then since then I did my professional accountancy qualifications, and I did those while I was working, and at that point I was in a manufacturing business and studying my accountancy qualifications at the same time. So I think from early on in my career I've been around manufacturing. I then transitioned my last role before BOAL. I spent 17 years at a specialty chemical company, and I joined there as an accountant and progressed through to the UK accounting manager. So it was like the top role within that organisation, and that's where I worked in tax and finance for that company for 17 years. I wanted an FD role, and that's why I moved to BOAL. And then 12 months later I became general manager, and then just last summer became managing director. So thinking of the transition, I think leadership was something I got involved in my previous finance role, you know, as a key finance accountant in that business. I got involved in a number of projects at quite a senior level, and I was part of the leadership team there. So that was my first taste of kind of leadership and what it meant. Some good and some bad examples, I think, in that organisation that you kind of want to avoid or want to use for future. So yeah, partly to do with the projects I was involved in that company that were cross-functional, and some of them were relating to manufacturing businesses, and then like I say, being in a leadership role in that organisation really drove me to want more of that side and that FD role. And it was more for me around being able to influence a business. I was at a large US corporate, and the ability to make decisions and influence the direction of that business was limited, and that's what really led me to come here to BOAL. What's the transition been like? It's been exciting, challenging, really enjoyable. It's something I've really enjoyed, you know. So yeah, I can go through some of the detail of that, or I don't know.
Please do, yeah, of course.
So I think thinking back to the day as an organisation we announced I was going to be general manager, that's quite a vivid memory. We got quite a lot of the key leaders at BOAL in the boardroom, and the plant manager at the time announced he was leaving and that I would be his successor and I would become general manager. And I can remember the mainly guys' faces in the room looking at me going, what the hell does she know about aluminium extrusion and manufacturing, and you know. And we've built a really good relationship, and I think leadership is all about people and relationships. So I think as coming in as finance director, you know, that's what I do. I build relationships and I work with people, and it's all about that. Whether it's manufacturing, whether it's finance, whether it's engineering, it's about relationships and the people. And I built that trust. But then to be told, you know, for them to hear the news, and I could see the faces, and I was asking myself, what does she know about manufacturing and leading this business? And I could see it in their faces, and I was like, you know, my past experience is about leading teams across different sites, multifunctional. You know, like I say, I was involved in manufacturing, R&D. You'd have IS projects, you know, so there were real mix of people in those teams that was involved in and leading, and they're the bits that are transferable. And like I say, you know, clear, it's all about relationships and people. So I think whether that's leading a manufacturing business or leading the finance team was around 20 people that I used to lead across multifunctional and multi-sites in the UK. Those skills are transferable. And then really I think you know, it's about demonstrating that you can do it and turning up every day and being reliable, trusted, and I think working with integrity, you know, that's just building trust in this team. They're all quite capable. They needed stretching a little bit more, I would say, you know, to realise their own capabilities, and that again, that's what I've done in my previous roles. So yeah, it's been really good challenge for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like what you said about, I guess, seeing the capability in your team, and you, that trust working both ways, that you know, they rely on you and they learn that they can trust you, but also you begin to push them, and it allows you to have more scope to also drive the business forward when you can trust and rely on people to do over and above in their jobs, which is great.
I think as well, this business was a very traditionally managed and led business. We've been in Shepshed site for 35 years, and the management style was quite traditional. It's quite a traditional manufacturing business. So my approach, it's not radical, but it's slightly different. One, I'm female, I have a slightly different approach. And that was quite a hard transition as well. So building that trust, like you say, was essential. Right at the beginning, there were some behaviours here that weren't acceptable. So on day one, I set out a structure of we talked about behaviours that become normal, that were no longer acceptable, and that culture was not how I was going to lead this business. So on day one, again, those same faces in the room had them back and said, these types of behaviour, I won't lead a business that behaves like this, or there's pockets of behaviour like this, and set that out on day one, because I think if you miss that opportunity, you've almost accepted, once you've got into that leadership role, if you don't, for me, I thought if I don't do that on day one, it's acceptance of that behaviour, and I wouldn't tolerate it. So the first day in my role, got everyone back in the room and went, this is the behaviour I don't want to see anymore. This is my expectation, and it happens from now. And the question was to them, you know, are you on this journey or not? And we called that Project Fresh Start. And the reason we did that, I did a lot of reading around it before that day. You know, I came in a little bit nervous, but thinking I cannot lead a business that behaves like this. So it was either we move and we're all on board to change this, or I take a different path because it's just not appropriate. And so, yeah, we call that Project Fresh Start because, you know, on regular check-ins and continuing on that culture journey, it was much easier to say, how's your team doing on Project Fresh Start? You know, what examples have we got? Have we still got issues? You know, let's talk about Project Fresh Start, rather than, you know, some behaviour that's a bit difficult to talk about. If you give it a name, it was much easier to talk about and say, what's the progress? Let's check in again. How's this going? So that was also something I needed to do straight away. And yeah, so relationships are really important. The culture's really important. and that's part of my role here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. As you got to say, culture underpins everything, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So I think that's the perfect way. If anyone listening who's a leader who's coming into that same sort of challenge, that sounds like a really good roadmap to take. So we have spoken about those kind of the people skills, the relationship skills. I'm sure your finance background also lent a lot of transferable skills that have helped you step into that leadership role. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's the basics of accounting that are, you know, really, really valuable and transferable. And I mean, some of the how you behave. So I've touched on integrity already. You know, also about compliance. So accountants, you know, we have to comply with the legislation. There's quite a lot of governance around that. So those teams can often be seen, or finance teams can often be seen as blockers. So, you know, around compliance, or you can't do it this way, or, you know, did you think of that? Or so in my previous role within finance, our finance strategy there was to facilitate and enable, identify, it could be efficiencies, or facilitate projects. So, you know, there's a real clear drive from me and my team in that organisation to be involved with departments or projects really early on and understand and work closely with businesses so that you're enablers and facilitators. So you may identify efficiencies, or you may, I don't know, do a piece of analysis that actually says, well, this market is really profitable, let's do more here, or actually your margins in this area are not as strong as this, you know, what's the difference, why? So you really enable us to drive improvement in a business, and like I say, that could be growth, it could be efficiencies, but you're the one with the data. And that's really transferable. So like I say, there's a piece around that you're honest, you've got good integrity, you know, you hold all the governance together, and then there's a bit about you have the insight into a business. I think as well, when you think of strategy of leading a business, those fundamentals of understanding that each decision that's made has a financial consequence, and actually seeing that through, understanding the pathway, whether that's a piece of investment, whether that's a contract with a customer, whether that's pricing from a supplier, a decision to take on that employee. Every single decision made in a business has a financial consequence, and actually not all managers or leaders can translate those decisions through to the bottom line, I would say, and how that improves or is to the detriment of profitability. So things around, you know, if you're thinking of a manufacturing business, continuous improvement, where we want a more efficient production process, what does that deliver? You know, we're all talking about AI, or we're talking about more sustainable production methods, but actually how does that translate? You know, if you think, when you're looking at an investment proposal, you might say, well, actually it doesn't win us any more business, but it must deliver something. So whether that's around safety, whether that's around less human contact, you know, less people resource required, less energy required, or more gross output, you know, there'll be something around that decision that you can value, monetize, and build an investment proposal on. But it's really capturing all of those elements that someone with analytical and finance skills can do.
No, that's so right, and I think it's almost like that within that operational level of the business, there's maybe not that commercial mindfulness where they're just not, they don't connect that shaving a little bit off the price here, or allowing this to go to waste or whatever there has that impact on the bottom line. And I guess in your role now as MD, are you trying to educate the people underneath you, I guess, on the impacts of those little losses here and there?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, people all operate in their departments with the best of intentions.
Yes.
Always. And you know, you've got to assume positive intent always, and people don't come to work to, you know, destroy or
to be rubbish at their job.
Yeah, definitely. You know, people turn up because they want to do a good job and they have the best of intentions. But yeah, I think a lot of what we do is explain the impact of those decisions, and also, you know, we ask for a lot of information as well, I think, in finance. Can you report on this? Can you tell me that? How much are you delivering this week? What's the tonnage? You know, what's your scrap percentage? And actually, without the person understanding why, it makes a huge impact for them to understand why. So one example is the finance team are asking, you know, pretty regularly, what deliveries we're going to make tomorrow, today, this week, next week, you know. And actually all of that is around our cash flow. You know, we manage our cash flow really tightly, and one of the biggest impacts and drivers for our cash flow is about tonnage out the door. So us hassling the dispatch teams going, how much are you delivering? How much? And they're like, what you just give over asking, you know, what is it? So it's a real education piece. And actually then, you know, when they start to understand why you're asking, it's much more meaningful for them. That, you know, they're less annoyed at these questions, and then they become proactive on, okay, what do you want us to do? You know, what's the targets? How can we meet the targets? How can we adapt? And so they start to improve their own processes around what the KPI is or metric that you're trying to measure. So yeah, that helps drive the business forward when they understand what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, or what the target is that they need to try and achieve.
So stepping back from that day-to-day operational level and back into now in your strategic standing, how does your financial background maybe play a role in you making strategic decisions for the business moving forward?
I think that's my biggest learning area. I think moving from, again, finance people are quite analytical, detail, and in that level of detail. So stepping back to look at the strategy of a business is something that's fairly new to me, I would say. I've worked on finance strategies, and now we operate within a business, but not a whole company. So it's really, you know, how we've approached that is to take the whole business, you know, and the key leaders within our business, and really start to think about what's critical for the success and long-term sustainability. So what's the vision of our company in 3 to 5 years? And that's as far out as we've gone so far. We will go further, but right now I'm at that 3 to 5 year window. So what is the size of company? What's, you know, the customer service level? Which customers are we trading? Which markets? So we've built a vision and strategy of of what we're aiming for, and then the strategy of how we get there. And again, that could be around world-class customer service is in our mission statement. So then how does finance strategy help deliver world-class customer service? Again, it's around metrics and measurement of, are we delivering world-class customer service? How do we know that we are? And you know, a lot of that's around data. Clearly, we need to perform well and keep our customers happy. But have we performed any better this week to last week to last year? That is all around data. So, you know, how do we build a vision of growing? How do we build a strategy of growing our business to the level that we need it in 3 to 5 years? Like I say, one thread of that is customer service. So we need to measure. We need to set a standard of what world-class customer service is. And how do we measure it? Because unless you can measure it, we don't know we're successful, and or are we in the right direction? So all that finance strategy comes through, all the finance elements and my finance skills come through in delivering those strategies. Customer service is just one element. You know, continuous improvement in our production process, or are we better at sustainability today than last year, and what are our future goals to get to net zero? You know, so all of that has finance embedded within it.
Definitely. That brings us really nicely on to the next topic that I wanted to cover, which was finance as a driver for sustainability and growth. So BOAL is committed to sustainable aluminium manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
From a financial leadership perspective, how do you balance commercial success with that long-term sustainability goal?
Let's think about the long-term sustainability goal first. So as an aluminium industry, we globally, aluminium industry contributes 2% of the greenhouse gases in the world. And so as an industry, we know we need to decarbonise. So being part of that industry and leading, well not leading, but at least contributing to that decarbonisation is essential to BOAL. It's part of our mission, it's part of who we are and how we differentiate in the market. Financial strategy within there is difficult, I would say. So part of this is we want to do the right thing.
Yep.
But can we commercialise that? Today, I would say hand on heart, that's difficult. It's really difficult to commercialise being sustainable. But long term, I'm not sure you would have a business if you didn't start to go down this path now and get ready.
Yes.
So I think from a finance, you know, thinking of commercialisation or the finance strategy within sustainability is very difficult, but it's something we're very conscious of. We've made a commitment to do it. We will do it. But do we see commercial value in it today? That's very difficult. So we struggle to demonstrate, I don't know, you know, customer pull or customers that will pay extra for those sustainability claims. And I think that's, you know, that's not unique to BOAL. I think that's across many industries. Will consumers pay more for a recyclable product or a sustainable product? Sometimes, sometimes not. So there are other aspects within this. So if we think of sustainability and some of the choices we make, that's where the finance strategy comes into this. So some of the bigger ticket items would be investment decisions. So 12 months ago, we made a 1.4 million investment in a new billet oven for our 9-inch press. And that was probably 3 years in the making. So from, you know, the outset of us looking at that project and then to implementation was really around a 3-year project. So if we're thinking right back at the beginning of that, that piece of equipment was around end of life. We had a lot of downtime. It was inefficient, health and safety issues. You know, it was a very hot billet oven, so it wasn't pleasant to work around. So there were lots of drivers to tell us, you know, we need to make an investment. And then as BOAL, you want to make the most sustainable decision, I would say. So for us, that was a heavy gas using oven. So if we're thinking about sustainability and how to reduce our CO2 footprint or greenhouse gases, we wanted to move to an electric billet oven, and then we're already committed to buying green energy. So that kind of would work. We quite quickly realised that the amount of power that electric, a version of that billet oven that was electric would require, our grid supply cannot meet. So we spoke with National Grid, and the lead time to get the power to this site was approximately 6 years. And, you know, that's quite uncertain as well. So we weren't in a position to wait around for that grid supply. So then, you know, you say the sustainability priority has to drop down a notch. And we then looked at gas ovens, which we had already. But you really don't want to go down that road if you're on a clear sustainability journey. But we didn't have, we got a limiting factor of power supply to this site. So we looked at varying options on gas ovens, and actually the gas ovens now are much, much more efficient than the one we had in. Efficiency of gas is one element in that sustainability story with that billet oven. There's a lot less wastage. It optimises how it cuts the billet within it. So there's a lot less waste. So that was another element. Like I said, the health and safety aspects were a lot better. So it's a lot better environment for our workers to work around. So, it's a lot safer for them. And I think I said it uses 40% less gas than the one that we had in originally. And it's around 310 tonnes of CO2 per year that it saves. So there's a lot of sustainability aspects to that investment. As well as it's the gross output. It's set up to do 5 tonnes per hour, where we only run it at about 3 tonnes per hour right now, but we've got that future built in there that we can increase our capacity. So there's more tonnage that we can produce. So output's better, uses less gas, it's safer. And there's less waste in there. So there's a lot of sustainability elements within there that you can then build a business case, and that's where your finance bit comes in. So your financial metrics around all that, and we put a business case together for that. So that was one of the big ticket items of our finance strategy and sustainability strategy working hand in hand. I think other things we do around sustainability, I've mentioned already. So we do pay more for our energy because it's green energy, but it's a choice we've made, and we won't go back from that. So that again, we've justified that. It's inbuilt in our business. We work with companies like Leighton to make sure we are maximising any support we can get from government. We're an intensive energy user, so there are schemes and support and compensations around. So it's really keeping your eyes and ears open and making sure we're maximising all that. So our energy bills are large. Like I say, we're committed to green energy. So then making sure everything around our energy is as efficient as possible. And we hedge our energy, lots of things around energy because we're such a big user. So again, all of that finance work comes into just buying your energy. So there's a whole piece of work and strategy around that and how we do it. And we've got great partners that we work with to help us. It's it's beyond a day job for me. Other things we do are probably not so big ticket, but I think as a strategy in our business, every decision we make has to be sustainable. Sustainability leads those decisions. And sometimes it means paying more. In a lot of cases it means paying more, and we have to weigh up kind of the pros and cons of, do we go down that road or not? But where we can, every decision we make, we think about sustainability and do it to the best of our ability within the resources we have, I would say. So whether that's our company car policy, so all of our company cars have to be electric or hybrid.
I think that the key thing that I'm hearing you're saying, and you're not the only, you're by far the only leader that finds this challenge, is having those really nice to have, nice to want sustainability goals that is the vision that we would all love to work towards, and then you just have the reality of what it is that you're having to deal with. Your example with the new billet oven, and the even things like you have to remain competitive with pricing, and the reality is that your customers are also watching the pennies, and when they have to make a commercial decision, they're not going to pay over and above a premium at the moment for a more sustainable option.
Some do. Yeah. We've got our BOAL Blue offering that is more sustainable. So it's either low carbon aluminium, or it's got a high recycled content in
Yes.
there. So yeah, we do have our BOAL Blue offering that some customers will
Yeah.
really want and need.
Yeah. You're maybe just
Yeah.
not at the stage yet where that is the only product that you can take to market.
Yeah, it's a choice. Yeah.
It is a choice, yes.
Yeah.
So we have spoke about a number of the challenges, I guess. What do you see are the opportunities in that move towards, I guess, more sustainable aluminium manufacturing?
Yeah. Yeah, the opportunities for aluminium industry are large, longer term, I would say. So the government's net zero targets really, aluminium can support and enable a lot of that transition. And it's really, it's not here now. So it's a longer term strategy really, but there are definite opportunities for aluminium and there should be growth in our markets. So whether that's in construction or transportation or solar markets, those markets really, aluminium can enable their sustainability targets and move towards that. So there's definite opportunities, but it is longer term. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Emma, so
Yes.
you have built a successful career in finance and now lead a business in a traditionally male-dominated sector. So what advice would you give to women considering a career in finance?
In finance. I think my background, I've always been in fairly female-dominated finance teams actually, and I think it's when you get to the more senior positions, the gender just seems to change. So there seems to be still, and my experience has been that there's still less females in the more senior roles when you get to the top, or close to the top, I would say. What advice would I give? I would say you've got to believe in yourself. I think the closer I got to the people in those roles, the more I realised I could at least do the same. I got the same ability. If not, I thought I could do it better. And that may be just me and how my brain works. But yeah, I think the closer you get to those roles and see how they're performed, is quite an insight sometimes. And that's not just finance, you know, like I say, I worked in cross-functional different teams. And the closer you get to them, you realise, actually, I could do this. So I think that was quite empowering. So it really is self-belief and perseverance. And then I think for me, I had good mentors as well and started to build a network around me that was really positive. So yeah, but yeah, grit, determination, self-belief, and just keep going and you'll get there.
Where would you say that women in finance should maybe look for mentors? You say your mentors were a big part of your journey, so where would they find mentors?
So for me, it was within my organisation, but not in the same team or department. They were other leaders that really, you know, some leaders are great at their job and will identify talent and then try to promote. So I would think, you know, if you're joining a company or working in a company, really look for those leaders that are good at that. And you can spot them and you can spot the ones that aren't, you know, developing their team. So I think don't be afraid to put yourselves in front of those people. And, you know, it can be as simple as having lunch, having a coffee, a walk at lunch, and really just starting some conversations. Those people that want to develop talent in an organisation will be more than welcoming opening the door, spending half an hour with you and just starting that conversation. And I think really look for those people within an organisation and get yourself in front of them. And you know, they'll open their arms and welcome you and welcome those types of conversation, because actually as a leader in an organisation, it's quite hard to find and spot talent. So if someone's, you know, looking for you, great, great win. I wasn't that forward, I would say, in looking for a mentor. And it was a real combination that I was kind of business partner and in working with someone in a different department completely. They were a leader in a different department, and they were the ones going, have you thought about this? Do you want to meet this person? And I was working for a US corporate, and we would have senior leaders over. Do you want just 10 minutes with them, Emma? And I'd be like, why would I want 10 minutes? No way, And they were like, no, I think you need to have 10 minutes with them. And then it was kind of coming up with what's the story? Why am I sitting in front of them for 10 minutes? What can I tell them that's of interest and gets, they remember that conversation and walk away, and they know who I am. So yeah, I had a mentor that really, like I say, gave me opportunities and pushed me into things that were uncomfortable. But I think I knew if I was getting a little bit uncomfortable, I should be doing it. you got to push yourself and stretch yourself. So yeah, I found a real good mentor in the last organisation I was in, that had some opportunities. But then I think once that starts, you find your own as well, and another paths. It isn't all down to one person to keep opening doors. But I think it just started that momentum, and then it gives you a little bit more self-belief, a little bit more confident that then you might say, well, this leader's coming over next week. I've heard, has he got any time? Can I meet them? And you're on the ask rather than waiting for an invite. Or you're coming up with the reason, or putting yourself in front of them to ask a question or ask for advice, or just show off what you've been doing, any reason really. So yeah, I think mentors are great and really helped me stretch my thinking and what my capabilities were, and what benefits I could bring to that company on a wider footing than I think I was realising in my finance role. I think I start to identify other areas where you can support a business. And I think as well, I challenged quite a lot. Once I started to build that confidence and resilience, I then wasn't happy with the status quo. And one example was a symposium that company used to do. It was a global event we used to hold in the UK every year. And the first year I attended it, I came away and, it was a research and development site, so they're showcasing the latest technology, the latest finding, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, latest product. And I was like, okay, but, on research, we're going to do all this again in 12 months. What else have we found out?
Yeah.
So I really challenged the fact that we should hold those in the UK. Everyone from around the globe in our organisation would descend on Derby once a year, and I was like, this is very expensive. What's new in 12 months, and what else have we discovered that can't wait, and actually should we rotate? So my proposal was, should we do this one in Asia, one in the US, and then maybe back to Europe, but why everyone in Europe, because so I challenged that, but it's not until you've built up some confidence that you can kind of then look at other parts of the business and start to challenge and question. And as a leader, you should be heard and listened, and it's not always successful, but I think you build that confidence to challenge, and you really are respected for that, I think. So yeah.
Definitely. It's like that mentor almost opens the door for you, and then it's still your responsibility to step through and start making those opportunities and choices for yourself.
Yeah. But once you start,
once you start, exactly.
It snowballs a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for women in finance who aspire to leadership, what key skills or experiences should they focus on to position themselves ready for executive roles?
I think from my experience, I really looked at people skills and building relationships within leading a finance team for a start. So really developing your skills there, whether it's coaching, developing again, really getting the best out of your people, spotting talent, stretching their capabilities or where they think they can get to. It's so rewarding, and that was really a key part of that finance role that I enjoyed. And I think if you're becoming a leader within finance, doesn't matter if you're at the top or not. And I think as well, a leader within any organisation doesn't need to have that formal title, do they? You can lead in so many different ways. So I think to exhibit those leadership qualities, really start to build relationships with people, and just constantly developing and learning. I think for me, even now I'm learning more now than I've ever done, but I think that constant desire to progress, develop, whether that's through formal learning, whether it's through networking, working with a mentor, developing your people. There's so much that you can constantly work at, and I think being curious as well. I've talked about challenging, but I think asking questions, not just providing, in finance you provide a lot of information, provide a lot of data, but really working closely for me it was with the business, whether that was R&D or manufacturing, working closely with them, and not just, you want to be integral to how they run their business. So not just producing the numbers and here's your report and here's my presentation that I do every month. You've got to be curious, you've got to be embedded. You want to be the one that they pick up the phone to because they need support on something. And like I say, early in that decision making, but you can't do that without building that relationships and trust. So it's all around people, as we've said. But I think, positioning yourself as a leader within finance, I think, you don't have to be the most senior, but leading by your behaviours, leading by the support you're providing to whichever department. You can even try to work to develop within your function or your department. So, and like I say, being curious. So there's lots and lots of development. It should never stop. And that doesn't need to be finance based. You don't need to progress, and you're assuming in a finance team you've got a certain level of qualification. I'm not talking about more finance qualifications. It's those other skill sets that really set you apart and start to position yourself. And finance should always be key parts of any leadership team, and that's where you need to get yourself to. And that, again, that doesn't need to be the boardroom. That can be, a department or a plant's functional meeting, their team meeting or whatever. But you need to be representing your area of expertise, and start, and keep developing yourself and building those relationships. And I think that sets you up then. I think in finance you have a real good insight holistically into a real oversight into a business. So, you're working with the numbers and departments across a business. You have a real insight into what's going on. So you've got a great opportunity to have that view of a business, but you need to go that next level down, not just look at the numbers, and really get yourself embedded and involved in that. And that's what will position yourself to take ownership then, and be able to influence those departments and be able to challenge or analyse or suggest that we go in this direction. So unless you're really close to the activities, just reporting the numbers is never enough.
Yeah. And like you say, that's a journey that starts from your very first leadership role in any capacity, like that team leader role, or like you take steps and you implement those skills from day one, where you're curious and you understand the granular detail of what people are up to, that follows on to the numbers and all that side of things. So yes, I think that's really practical advice that people will take something from. Emma, this has been a fantastic discussion.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share before we finish up?
I don't think so.
Great, cool, perfect.
Thank
That's great.
you.
No, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
That's all right.
And thank you for everyone listening along at home. This is wrapping us up for the Women in Business series. We're going to be moving on to our next mini series, which is focused on capital allowances, one of our other tax incentive products that we support businesses with. But until then, this has been the Expert Exchange podcast.